Let's talk to those 18 convictions, because you've briefly explained and provided some context around them. It's related to one case that dates back to 2011 and 2012. Can you provide some clarity around that? Because I think for the layman, having 18 convictions that pertain to one case, it doesn't really make that much sense. Can you expand a little bit about what those convictions relate to?
So in the time period, the 2010-2011 period, myself and a number of business people were involved in buying and selling vehicles. However, we hadn't done the due diligence in checking on how the vehicles were acquired and the system used to register them on e-Natus. A whole host of police officers were arrested. There was a whole host of businessmen that were arrested, and some of us took plea and sentencing agreements to nip it in the bud and close the chapter. It was a lack of oversight on our side. We should have done our due diligence, but there were a number of people at the same time period caught with the same scam. However, the charges did, in the competent verdict, reflect theft. Some of them were linked to carjacking, but that itself didn't necessarily mean that we were hijacking cars the way in which General Khumalo tried to portray it today, that every month we were stealing cars or hijacking cars. I'm sure, as you can see, I'm very easy to recognize, and it doesn't really make much sense what he's talking about, but obviously it's the narrative that he was trying to drive home today.
I want to talk a little bit about the personal relationships that you claim to have with General Dumisani Khumalo, because you say that you know him, he knows you well, and he should have spoken to you about this prior to dropping your name at the commission. But firstly, I want to talk a little bit more about these cases and where they were committed, because I believe most of the cases were in KZN, but there's also another case pertaining to the Northwest. Can you clarify that for us?
Okay, so the KZN cases are the bulk of the 18 that he spoke about in terms of the convictions, which all fall under one operation, which was basically one case. It's one sentencing agreement with 18 charges. It's not 18 different cases that were run simultaneously in 18 different courts throughout the country. It was centralized, it's one issue with one sentence. What he alluded to the public is that in the Northwest, the case was subsequently withdrawn, and we have no charges in the Northwest, nor was I convicted of anything in the Northwest.